Welcome back. Heavy rains have wreaked havoc in KZN, causing damage to over 13,000 homes. Nearly 4,000 of those houses were completely destroyed. This was revealed during a media briefing by Human Settlements Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi on Friday, and she joins us now to give us a little bit more insight. Minister, thank you very much for joining us this evening here on South Africa Tonight. Can you give us a little bit more detail after today? We know that rain has persisted. Has there been any additional damage to houses? And what's the breakdown between totally damaged, partially damaged houses?
Good evening, and thank you very much for having us, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, we don't have an updated figure since yesterday when we did the media briefing. The figure that we have obviously is based on the assessment. Once new figures come, which we do expect to happen, we will definitely add to it. What we are sitting with is that we're sitting with a figure where you have almost around 4,000 of houses that have been partially damaged, and just above 8,000 houses that have been, 4,000 that are completely damaged and 8,000 that are partially damaged. Now, with this means that these are families that we've been able to access the technical teams to go access, check on the sites and be able to verify. We do know that there are communities that have been locked out. Media reports as well, you've been reporting as eNCA that there are communities that are locked out. When I was in the last stop, when I was around Molweni, Lower Molweni side, we could get information. We got information that there's been the communities locked out. It's closed in, actually, locked out of the world, of the communities. No one is able to come in or out except through the choppers, and they were waiting for other amenities to come through. So for assessment teams, we've not been able to go there. So those are some of the communities that we still have to do assessments. And once that is done and we get the figures correctly, it's what would add. I think as we were there as well, just to pass the condolences to all the families that have lost their loved ones, that continue to receive the sad news. As yesterday as well, we got the news that 15 members in Ward 9, for example, of the community were still missing. Neither are they accounted for, nor have been their bodies have been found. So it's some of those things that we're still worried about.
As you said a little bit earlier, most of these houses are occupied or were occupied by families. Do we know exactly how many individuals are displaced at this stage? That
figure would be provided by the province. I think it's over around 40,000 from what I last saw. But the updated statistics could be provided by either the Premier or the lead person in terms of the disaster. So what we focus on as human settlements is the houses, because once we provide a household, then the members of the families are able to go back.
Unfortunately, in many instances, it is the poorest of the poor who are affected by these kinds of natural disasters, and many people who have been seriously affected by the floods in KZN were living in areas that were not suitable for housing, informal settlements built on hillsides where a mudslide would prove to be absolutely disastrous, as in this case it has. What are your plans for relocating the most vulnerable communities in Durban, which we know have many of these hillsides populated by informal dwellers in conditions that are not suitable for long-term habitation? Going forward, what is the Human Settlements Department going to do in KZN to make sure this kind of devastation doesn't happen as easily next time?
Look, the issue is in two folds, I need to say. If you look at the devastation, it's not only around where it has been affected, only the informal settlements. And I'll come into that area just to explain and our concerns around it. You do have like proper structures that have been affected. So it's around the landscape of KZN. It's around how, if you look at the slope, it is. So there are houses, proper houses that have been built, that have been destroyed. You'd have seen apartments that have been built by private developers in affluent areas that have been built, that have been destroyed. So it's in two folds, and that's why it's important for us to look at it. Yes, in terms of relocation of people, we are worried because even those houses, not only informal settlements, those houses that have been completely destroyed and you find that the soil has moved or there's been erosion in that area and you can't go and reconstruct within the same area, either it's an RDP or any form of support, we do need to look into the relocation. If we look at the disaster, more worried, it's around eThekwini. Remember, we've got all the other districts that are affected as we listed them yesterday. eThekwini, we are worried specifically because of the land. So relocation will mean that we must find suitable land to be able to move them, but also will have to be able to have conversation with these communities to be able to move them, because some of them would utilize certain examples to say we can't move. But when you look at informal settlements, yes, I agree. Many of the informal, especially the illegally occupied informal settlements, you find that people put themselves in wetlands, people put themselves close to river banks, and when this type of disasters happens, that's where we mostly lose lives. And that's why our appeal continues to be to our communities. When we say this land is not suitable for human settlements, people must not go and illegally occupy. We'll have to work together as communities to be able to provide alternative. One of the things that we're looking at, we had a conversation with the MEC, who's been doing a great job on the ground to do assessments that we are talking about, to do the team, because he will be leading, the provincial department will be leading in the implementation of the work that we have announced, is that we had a conversation that we need to fast track Konobia. Konobia in the city of eThekwini has been a project that was designated, it's a presidential project that has been designated to be able to build a sizable number of units that could be able to assist us to relocate. It has not been performing well, and we'll zoom into it to ensure that we get it back on track and we can be able to start moving people in these informal settlements that are not suitable, that are actually seen as dangerous. As we continue with climate change here with us, we have no option but to start thinking differently in how we settle people, and the people, when they settle themselves, have to think about the possibility of this type of floods.
We know that the final assessments are still underway to release funds from Treasury for disaster relief. How much will the Settlements Department be campaigning for to assist communities affected by the floods in KZN?
We have already received our approval with Treasury to move the funds by Thursday. One of the first departments that looked in our budget, reprioritized, and also started working. The team has assured me by the next week, the money will be transferred to KZN so that the money can start flowing. We're looking at R1 billion immediately to be able to start working. What we know in terms of temporary units, the units will cost us less, but we're looking at also responding with the temporary units that we're looking at is about 4,000, but also because there are houses that are partially destroyed. So we'll need to look into the voucher system to be able to implement that. We've tested this with when Pietermaritzburg was hit by, the area of Pietermaritzburg was hit by the disaster, and that was able to move faster. Communities have given us feedback to say actually the voucher system works better. They are able to replace the roofs, especially when the structures are still, the integrity is still good, and then we can be able to replace, for example, the roofs and all that. So the funds are already available. The team has given me update assurance that from next week, at least the team in human settlements in the KZN can start working from Tuesday and ensuring that we fast track the rebuilding and ensuring that communities, especially the households that are completely destroyed and partially, that at least need to be starting to preparing to burying their loved ones. They can't do that when they're sitting in their halls, are able to have that opportunity.